Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Bolt City podcast. I'm Dave Palet, Josh Palet. Mario Heron will join us in just a little bit. The Chargers, as everyone knows, take on the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland this Sunday. Joining us right now from It's Always Game Day in Cleveland, does a fantastic job with the Browns podcast. It's Daryl Ruiter, of course, courtesy of Odyssey as well. Daryl, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here and of course, talk a little of what's going to happen on Sunday. I got to tell you, I'll start off first. When I saw the Browns on the schedule, first thing check in my mind was, is Deshaun Watson going to be back? And when you see that they're going to play them early, you go, well, the Chargers should have no issue with their talent going to Cleveland facing Jacoby Brissett. Man, there's still a lot of talent on this Browns roster. They're 2-2 right now, and I'm sure people in Cleveland can argue they should be 3-1. Right now, looking at this Browns team 4 games in, what is their identity? What do you see from this team?
They can't finish in their 2 losses. They're just absolutely getting annihilated in the fourth quarter. That is the chief concern. They've allowed 50 points in that final quarter. Big collapse against the Jets in the final 90 seconds. They were up 30-17. Everybody's celebrating after Nick Chubb scored that touchdown, thinking 2-0, and then it just completely fell apart on them. So defensively, they give up a lot of big plays. They've had a lot of, whether you want to call it coverage breakdowns, technique breakdowns, it's all the same. Guys are running wide open in the secondary at times. So their identity right now is, quite frankly, a mixed bag. But the biggest concern is that they can't close, and it's a shame. You said 3-1. I would argue they should be 4-0. They should have won that game in Atlanta too. So Jacoby Brissett is not why this team is 2-2. If you would have told me going into the season that the Browns would be 2-2, and I'd say, well, that's because Jacoby Brissett is playing the way Jacoby Brissett normally plays, and that is as an average quarterback. And that's not been the case. He's not been great, but he's been very, very good for this team, and he is not why they have lost half their games so far.
Going into this season, I said the Cincinnati Bengals would win the AFC North. Obviously, the Bengals haven't looked very good. The Ravens' defense has struggled so far, and the Steelers really don't have a quarterback. Is the thought in Cleveland to kind of keep your head above water while Deshaun Watson, gets back after that 10th game, and maybe we can win this division?
Sure. And this is, I think, what is so frustrating for Browns fans about the fact that they're 2-2. Normally, you wouldn't complain. It's the Browns, right? I mean, wins are precious. So they really blew an opportunity to give themselves a bit of a cushion as they go into what I consider to be a gauntlet, starting with the Chargers Sunday here in Cleveland, because, it is such a competitive division. There is very little margin for error. Certainly when you have Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback and you're waiting for your new $230 million franchise quarterback to actually be allowed to play for you, you've got to take advantage of those opportunities. And I just feel like they squandered 2 golden opportunities against the Jets, and then, of course, this past week in Atlanta against the Falcons. So instead of being 4-0 and having themselves some cushion going into this tough part of the schedule, they're 500 at 2-2. They're tied atop the division. The reason that they have the tiebreaker is because they did beat the Steelers on Thursday Night Football and are 1-0 within divisional play. But now you've got to play teams like the Chargers. Then the Patriots come to town, and Bill Belichick, being a former Browns coach, loves shoving it up the Browns' backsides at any given moment. He still remembers the 90s and how he was basically run out of town, even though Art Modell moved the team. You've got divisional games against the Bengals and, of course, the Ravens. In there too, you've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady will make his, what we believe, assuming he retires at some point in his life, we believe it to be his final trip to Cleveland with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, oh, yeah, Josh Allen, forgot about him. He, too, is on the schedule. So when you look at the quarterbacks that the Browns have to play, right, starting this weekend with Justin Herbert, then, okay, you got the rookie with New England because Brian Hoyer's on IR and Mac Jones is on IR. But then Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Tom. My God, no rest for the weary in the Browns secondary over the next 7 games. That's for sure.
Let me ask you about Kevin Stefanski, because when you look at the Browns organization over a number of years, you could, goof on some of the head coaching decisions they've made. And you could do the same thing with the Chargers. And the way the Chargers started out, especially that game against Jacksonville, there are people wondering, is Brandon Staley the right guy for the job? First of all, he's a defensive coach, and Charger fans are going, this is an offensive coach's league now. You maybe have the wrong head coach. Is even head coaching material? That's the stuff that we have talked about, and Charger fans have shown things they've been frustrated about. The running joke on this show is, you talked about the Browns not finishing. Whatever Staley says at halftime, your halftime speeches stink, because they always come out awful in the second half. Stefanski, for me, as a football fan watching from the outside, I'm a fan. So far, I like what I see for the most part, compared to especially the Browns coaches you've had in the past. What do people in Cleveland think of him? What does the locker room think of Stefanski?
Well, the locker room loves him. After Sunday's game, fans want to run him out of town. And that's why they're fans.
Yes.
To be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I think he's the best coach the Browns have had since coming back into the league in '99. Eric Mangini, I had as the best coach prior to that, and people would laugh at me because he won 10 games over 2 years. But the Browns went from one of the most undisciplined teams to one of the most disciplined, least penalized teams under Mangini. And I always said that had he been willing to subjugate his ego a little bit and bring in a legitimate general manager to acquire the football talent for him, he might have been able to win a Super Bowl with the Browns. He, in my estimation, was that good, but he was Bill Belichick light. And, that was obviously to his detriment. Look, Stefanski has had to deal with problem after problem after problem since taking this job. First, it was COVID, right? Which actually kind of worked out in the Browns' favor because all the distractions got kept away from the team, right? They were isolated that whole year. They ended up winning 11 games, going to the playoffs, going to Pittsburgh, beating the Steelers, who have just abused the Browns since 1999. I mean, I always joke that any Hall of Famer from the Browns, or I should say from the Ravens, the Steelers, or the Bengals from 1999 to present are legally required to thank the Cleveland Browns in their Hall of Fame induction speeches, because the Browns sucked so bad for so long, and so many players made careers against or at the Browns' expense. So I think he's a really good coach. He had a bad day at the office, but I do like his aggressiveness going forward on 4th and short instead of just punting the ball or kicking field goals. But this past weekend, should have taken the 3 to open the game. I'm a big proponent on your opening drive. You always take points because you just don't know how the pace and flow of the game is going to go. And yes, analytics, data, whatever you want to call it. The one thing you cannot quantify with data is the human element. And I think that he probably should have taken the points there, and maybe, just maybe, that game plays out a little differently had he done so. But he's a very good coach. He really is. And I do think that because Browns fans are so scarred, and like you mentioned earlier, the incompetence that the Browns have had, whether it's Freddie Kitchens, Hugh Jackson, Rob Chudzinski, who wasn't ready to be a head coach. I won't say Mike Pettin was incompetent, because Mike Pettin got saddled with John Paul did not care about football Manziel. So that I don't blame him from that. But there's just so many incompetent coaches that have come through Cleveland over the years. And Kevin Stefanski is very, very competent at his job.
Dave and I are huge Alabama fans. If you guys would have held on to that Nick Saban guy, it might have worked out a little bit differently.
I don't. You know what? I don't know that Saban played well in the NFL, which I think when you look at his tenure with the Miami Dolphins, that would tell you no. Similar to Urban Meyer, Pete Carroll is the exception to the rule in Cincinnati. The college way of coaching players just doesn't play well. in the NFL. And when you hear some of the stuff that came out of Jacksonville following Urban Meyer's tenure, basically it's all the stuff he did in Columbus and he did in Gainesville, where he's a hero. He won national championships. He's a hero. You can't treat grown men like that. You can't treat grown men like they're in college. And that was his downfall. But I don't know that Saban would have played very well in Cleveland or any other NFL market. And again, I lean back to his tenure with the Miami Dolphins, which was not good.
It was 500 against the Patriots. How's that?
Well, there are also 31 other teams in the league, 30 other teams in the league. So I don't know that you can just base it on being 500 against the Patriots. And of course, he and Bill, we all know about that relationship.
Yes.
So, Daryl, us Charger fans, we don't get to watch a lot of Cleveland Browns football.
You're not missing anything. Well, maybe the last couple of years you've missed a little because the team is actually competent, and it's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than what had been here the previous 20 years. Mm-hmm. But, in all, you've not missed much.
I actually really like the Cleveland Browns roster. I think they've done a pretty good job of putting the team together. Myles Garrett obviously jumps out to you on the defensive side of the ball. Nick Chubb on the offensive side of the ball. Instead of being obvious and saying Nick Chubb is, the playmaker on offense, who as Charger fans we should look for on the Cleveland Browns on Sunday? Maybe somebody that's going to make a big impact.
Well, two players. One, Amari Cooper, who has been forgotten in 2 of the 4 games. The 2 games he wasn't forgotten, he put up 100 yards and a touchdown. So, and he was the first Brown to do that since Josh Gordon back in 2013. Talk about a blast from the past. So Amari Cooper, and then I'm going to say Kareem Hunt, because I think he is a number 1 running back who is basically the number 2 back here in Cleveland behind Chubb, and understandably so. But if the Chargers don't pay attention to Kareem Hunt, he could wreck their afternoon all by himself.
All right, Joel, I'm always curious to know, what does the other team think of the Chargers? So with the Chargers coming to town, obviously every team has identified from their starting quarterback. Everyone knows about Justin Herbert. When you look at the Chargers,
he's kind of hard to miss.
He's kind of hard to miss. And I'll be honest with you, it completely surprised me. I mean, he's been much better than I thought he would be coming out of Oregon. With the Chargers coming to town, who are the Browns afraid of?
Justin Herbert, because all he does is torch secondaries. I think if I read the stat correctly, he leads the NFL in 300-yard games since he came into the league. So it starts with him first and foremost. Certainly his supporting cast, the receivers, they're big, they're strong, they're fast. And again, this Browns secondary overall is pretty good. And when you look at what the Browns have on paper, you say, hey, man, this is a top secondary in the NFL. The problem is they fall asleep occasionally, and that is what has burned them. The Jets did it to them. Hell, the Carolina Panthers did it to them in week 1. I mean, look, they won that game by the grace of God. I mean, 58-yard field goal as time expires from your rookie kicker. That's why they walked out of there with smiles on their faces. So we can make it. I can sit here and say, yeah, the Browns should be 3-1 and 4-0. They could also be 1-3 as well. I mean, that's how fine the line is for them. But to me, it starts with Justin Herbert and his size, his arm strength. I know he's a little banged up right now, but every player that I've talked to this week in the locker room has said they don't notice that he's playing hurt.
Okay, so this is your last question before you get out of here, man. I know we're running a little bit short on time. What's your prediction for this Sunday? If I was the Browns, I'd run the ball 40 times a game. The Chargers have struggled against the run. What would you do?
I would do the same thing. I would do to the Browns what the Falcon. The reason the Browns lost is because on Sunday is the Falcons gave them a dose of their own medicine. They ran it 14 straight times on them. That's usually what the Browns do to teams. So I would feature the run first and foremost, alternating Chubb and Hunt, and just basically try and bludgeon the Chargers to death. Also, by the way, when the Browns have the football, that means Justin Herbert doesn't. Yep. And your best defense is actually your offense. And the Browns have been very, very good at sustaining drives. And one number that surprised me is the fact that the Browns actually average more points per game than the Chargers do. LA's around, I think, 23 a game. The Browns are over 26. That surprised me a little bit. So I would feature the run first and foremost and make it a run-heavy attack against the Chargers. I think if the Browns do that, they win, because that's the formula that can beat the Chargers. If they get away from that, if they try and go toe-to-toe with Justin Herbert, they're going to lose. And again, that's no disrespect to what Jacoby Brissett has done. I mean, look, Brissett is completing around 65% of his passes, 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Sign me up for that. If you would have told me going into the season those were the type of numbers you were going to get out of Jacoby Brissett, I would have been thrilled. So I think if the Browns run the ball, they can win this game. But it's a quarterback league, and I've watched this defense for 4 weeks, and it scares the bejesus out of me. So I do think that the Chargers could come to Cleveland and come away with a win. But one little thing the Browns have going in their favor, Chargers are going to be on West Coast time, which means they're going to be playing football at breakfast.
Yeah,
because this is a 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. So I am going to make all your viewers and listeners angry as hell at me. It's okay. Browns fans hate me here in Cleveland at times too, most of the time. So I'm going to say the Browns win 31. They score a season-high 31 points. Chargers score 30. 31-30.
Ooh.
Okay.
And there have been a lot of close games over the years between these two teams. That wouldn't surprise me at all, something that close of a game. Daryl, can't thank you enough, man. That was a lot of fun. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us again today on the Bolt City podcast. That's Daryl Ruiter from It's Always Game Day in Cleveland. Daryl, again, thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me, guys. A lot of fun.
Thanks, you.
Daryl.
So, Josh, I tell you what, he said close game. And if you remember, you follow the Chargers and the Browns. And doesn't it always feel like the Chargers and Browns play every year? I mean, they aren't in the same division, but even going back to last year, maybe the most entertaining game of 2021 was when the Browns came to SoFi Stadium. It was extremely entertaining. And then we've seen games in the past where the Chargers went to Cleveland and entertaining, whether it was good or bad. And Mario Heron joins us again right now. But Mario, you heard him right there saying 31-30, something extremely close. That doesn't surprise me. The point spread right now is 3 in favor of the Chargers for the people that are wondering. When he says that score, are either one of you guys surprised?
You go, Mario.
I am very surprised because I expect Stefanski to drain that clock. I think the goal for the Browns is to get an early lead and drain it. Like you said, the way the Browns win this game is they keep Herbert off the field. And I think you try to do that at all costs. I think if it goes to 31-30, you're looking at more of a shootout, and that goes way in the Chargers' favor. And I think if we go into that, give that to me all single day. Give me that. We're going to be on red zone all the time. Shoot. So I would take that. I think it'd be more of a low scoring game for the Browns to win. I think if it's the higher scoring, the better it looks for the Chargers.
I couldn't agree more. They're going to try to drain the clock, which means the time of possession for us is going to be lower. If it's a high scoring game, we have to win, right? Because if they're throwing the ball, if we're throwing the ball as much as they are, if it's a if they're throwing the ball a lot, I got to cut that out, Mario. If we throw the ball a lot, we should win this game, because if they're running it, we're not going to have a chance, man. This could be one of those games you get really frustrated because the clock's going so fast. You're saying this game went by so damn quick. But if they throw the ball more than 25 times, I say the Chargers win this game.
You know, one of the things I thought he said was interesting was talking about Amari Cooper. We all know Amari Cooper is the number one target through the passing game for the Browns. Well, Amari Cooper is almost a mirror image of Mike Williams. I mean, he's disappeared for 2 games. Mike Williams has disappeared for 2 games. 2 guys that are very good at what they do when it's their day. Yet, for some reason, for 50% of the games, he's gone. Mike Williams has done the same thing. We have the better quarterback, straight out. We have the better quarterback. We have more talent. They have Nick Chubb, who's just outstanding. I mean, Nick Chubb's numbers look like college numbers, right? I think he's averaging 5.67 yards a carry. I mean, he's really outstanding. And so for the Chargers, if they can do anything to slow down Nick Chubb where the Browns get away from him or Kareem Hunt, they're going to be fine. They're going to be absolutely fine. When he mentions the fact about the traveling part, and we brought this up, I believe, on the last show about traveling from, west to east, and you're going not only to a different time zone of 3 hours, but also it's a morning game basically for the Chargers. It's 10 a.m. in the morning, West Coast time. Is that something that concerns you? You're like, hey, there are only 17 of these work days that I have to show up for. I think I can wake myself up for a 10 a.m. game.
It's not a concern of mine. If you're not ready to play 10 a.m. in the morning, get your ass back home. Like, this is the NFL, dude. You can wake up. I'm not concerned at all. I don't think that's something a fan should be concerned about. What about you, Mario?
I'm going to be honest with you. I grew up in the Midwest, and I played a lacrosse team when I played lacrosse from California, and this is going to be such an old man story, but stay with me. And I remember when we played them, it was noon our time, and our coach said, "This is 9 o'clock their time. Let's whoop these California wussies because they don't like the cold and they don't like playing early." That's my first thought when I thought of this game was, if you're the Browns, you're thinking, here are these LA guys coming in, thinking they're the hot shot, throwing the ball, and we're the gritty, wearing uniforms that look like poop, but we're going to run it down your throat, old style football. So that is a little bit of a worry to me because Browns are going to have that chip on the shoulder. It's a Midwest thing. It is what it is. It's always screaming. It's a 1985 LA Rams come in, play the 85 Bears, get the crap beat out of them, and Eric Dickerson's going, I'm cold the whole time. That's the first thing I think of anytime a California team comes to the Midwest. So that is a big worry for me. And I know I just kind of pissed off you two California guys a little bit about those comments.
Here's my argument back on that, because I've heard the same thing for years. All right. And I consider myself a California guy. All right. Not everyone on the Chargers was raised in California. You understand that, right? Like Khalil Mack played at Buffalo. I mean, just because they were drafted by the Chargers, that's not where they were born and raised. I mean, Eric Dickerson's from Dallas. I don't know. Maybe Eric Dickerson was off. Maybe the Bears were just outstanding, which they were. But the time thing I understand, but that cold thing always kills me, because if you look through the Charger roster, how many guys went to UCLA or USC? Hardly any. So but you hear that all the time, and I always think that that's an excuse. And for me, here's how I always feel. You're only being asked to show up 17 days a year for work, and you're being paying a ton of money. If you can't get your ass together and get ready to go, it is frustrating as a fan, right? Because as fans, what are we all doing? We're all sitting there in front of our TV when a team's on the road, if we don't make that trip, and we're all going, I pictured myself one day wearing that uniform. What would happen if I was playing? And as fans, we all wish we were players. We aren't. So for the guys that don't appreciate it and don't give 100%, it's really frustrating when we see players take days off. And that's for me as a sports fan, whether it's this sport or any other sport, I get really frustrated going, you're living the dream life, and you can't give me your best effort at 17 days that we ask you to show up during the year. Come on,
Yeah, give me a freaking break, dude. You're a freaking millionaire. If it was colder, I'd be more concerned. It's going to be 63 on Sunday. It's not much of a concern for me. I'm looking at matchups mostly. So they're number one.
Hold on, Josh.
What?
Are we just going to let it pass that Mario called us a bunch of California wussies? I mean, good God.
Dude, I didn't call you guys that. I was
100% you did. Indirectly. Yeah, we represent all of California. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and everybody thinks California is the softest group of people. Like, what's the movie? The
Bad News Bears. We go to Houston.
Bad News Bears go to Houston.
Can't even repeat the line they say.
Yeah, I can't either. So I look more at matchups going into this game. Their number one corner, Denzel Ward's banged up. He's going to be on Mike Williams. I mean, if he's not all the way healthy, I think Mike Williams could have a huge game. There's another rumor that came out about Odell Beckham Jr. that we wanted to talk about today. I wish so badly that Odell Beckham Jr. was on the team, ready to go to play against the Browns. Obviously, he's not on the team at all. But what do you think about that, Mario? If the Chargers picked up a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. in the middle of the season,
I would like it for his attitude. He has that attitude, a little chip on his shoulder, be ready to play. I'm a little nervous how it would go if, he's not getting targets right away, or if he gets upset about that. And, we have his father posting clips of him wide open or anything like that. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit. But I do agree with you. Like, if we signed him and then we had him for Sunday's game, oh my gosh, that'd be beautiful. Him coming back in Cleveland, he'd love to beat the living crap out of that team.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for it, especially with Keenan Allen. We don't really know what's going on right now. He hasn't practiced at all this week. Doesn't look like he's going to play on Sunday. Mike Williams is there and that he's not. But I am for it. But I want to make sure that, we have OBJ that's willing to be a team player and not focus on himself and post clips of him open and Herbert not throwing the ball to him. What about you, Dave?
You know what? I want someone that's going to come and play the team game. Like, you don't want to be a complete distraction. There are different guys that could be distractions and help other guys on the team out. There's a confidence level. I mean, he knows he's great, and really in Cleveland, I think everything about him kind of disappeared. His his reputation took a huge step backwards, whether he was fighting with the quarterback or not. He wasn't putting up the numbers that they thought he was going to put up once he left the Giants. He goes to the Rams, and he was a big part of what they did. I mean, he scored a bunch of big touchdowns, including a huge touchdown in the Super Bowl before he was injured. If he ends up with the Chargers, I'm going to be extremely excited, of course, because it's just another weapon. You can't sit there and prepare for the Chargers without preparing for Odell Beckham Jr. And right now, the teams that are out there that sound like they're going to bring him in are either going to be, no particular order. The Chargers, the Chiefs, which would be, hurtful inside the division, the Packers, the Rams, right? You're hearing about that. And not a lot of talk about the Rams, but we all know with these rumors that the team that's the most quiet is the one that gets them. But according to people that cover the Rams, there's a locker with his name on it and all his gear is still right there, ready for him at the practice facility, waiting for him to return to the Rams. And they aren't using Allen Robinson at all. The Rams definitely need help on an offensive line and something to kickstart that offense. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was there. But those teams, the fact that the Chargers are in the mix, I think we all agree with the injuries they've had. And even if they didn't have the injuries, Odell Beckham Jr. is still better than almost every receiver they have on their roster. And I think he'd be a help if he was healthy.
It's interesting that he's rumored to the Chargers. I never pictured us picking up a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. If I had to pick which team he ends up with, it would be the LA Rams. I think it makes the most sense. But Keenan Allen thing really scares me, man. If he doesn't play this Sunday, that'd be 3.5 games he hasn't played this season. I wonder if them talking about Odell Beckham Jr. something as a precautionary pickup because Keenan Allen just won't be 100%. If you did have Odell Beckham Jr., you could argue that the Chargers have 3 number 1 caliber receivers in the best receiving corps in the NFL.
Yeah, and technically, if he still has a locker at the Rams facility, he kind of still has a locker at the Chargers facility too. If you want to play that game, yeah. No, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, the fact of the matter that's concerning to me, I want to know if it's concerning for you guys, is Keenan Allen hasn't even practiced. Like, it's one thing if he's going out there and doing some drills, but he hasn't practiced, and that's the thing that kind of stands out to me that worries me a little bit. Dave, you've been around this business longer than I've been alive, so does that kind of shock you more or worry you more about the practice?
It's the hamstring thing. I mean, everyone knows with the hamstring. If you've ever had it, I don't know about either one of you. I was one of those guys as a sports fan that didn't have a hamstring injury until I was 32 years old, and let me tell you, it was the most painful thing ever. Like, I thought I was dying, and you're, as a fan, you're like, dude, just get out there. You're gonna be fine. Just run short routes, whatever it is. You can't move. I mean, anyone that's ever had a severe hamstring injury, and his isn't severe, it's a pull. A tear feels like 2 rubber bands just snapped in your leg. And once that happens, you're done for a year. You are not running for a year. It is so difficult to even use the bathroom, to sit on anything and then get back up, to think about running patterns in the NFL. So far, if I'm the Chargers, I am, very cautious. You want to take Keenan Allen at his word because it's one of those injuries that's more in the athlete's word than what the MRI is telling you. The MRI, they can tell you, look, the X-rays, MRIs, everything shows you're good to go. And then the player's telling you he's not. You got to listen to the player. I don't think Keenan Allen's taking shortcuts because he doesn't want to work. But let's be honest, the Chargers only had him for one half, not even a full half of a season. And they're 2-2. Does it make a difference in their overall record? We were talking about this on the last show. If he doesn't play against Cleveland, right now it's likely he won't. And if he doesn't play the following week on Monday Night Football, and then you have the bye, I think obviously you're talking, if you're the Chargers, it gives them an extra basically 3 weeks off. And then you make a run at the second half of the season against much tougher opponents. But you can't afford to lose these 2 games. You can't afford to lose to the Browns and lose to the Broncos, and especially inside your division. But you hope Keenan Allen is being truthful and he's taking care of himself, and the Chargers medical staff. Right now, I think everybody raises their eyebrows on every medical staff, what the hell is going on? We all wonder. But you hope everything is in the right direction. Doesn't surprise me he's not working out because really there's nothing you can do. I mean, there's just nothing you can do if you don't have your legs.
As you mentioned, Keenan Allen did not practice today. Limited in practice was tight end Gerald Everett, kicker Dustin Hopkins, and wide receiver Josh Palmer. Out of those 3 guys,
how did the kicker get hurt? I mean, what the hell?
He was actually used in the game. He's never done that before. Out of those 3 guys I just named, Mario, Josh Palmer, Gerald Everett, Dustin Hopkins, which one do you think is most important to this Sunday's game?
Gerald Everett by far and more. He's become a very valuable target for Justin Herbert throughout this whole year. He's been more consistent than Williams. Obviously, Williams' numbers are probably better because when he goes off, he goes off. But Everett has been more consistent. And if, Everett does not play Sunday, it does look like Donald Parham Jr. I said that last name right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
fun.
perfect. Let's go. I love that. We'll start, and it's his first game of the year. So I'd rather have Everett, who's been consistent. He's been really good for us. He's been what I would say kind of like our breakout player so far this year. I'd rather have him playing than anything. And I would like that reliability of him being open when we need him on big downs. What about you, Dave?
It's Everett. Before the game, it's Everett. During a game, it's the kicker. I mean, it's crazy as that sounds. You ever see an NFL team trying to win a game without a kicker in the middle of a game? I mean, it changes everything you do as far as field goals, extra points, everything you're going to do, not having your kicker. I have an old theory, and I know it sounds terrible to say, but since this is a Charger-heavy podcast and we don't hide who we want to win on Sundays, if I was a head coach in the NFL and my team made it to the Super Bowl, we're taking out the kicker the first chance we get because it completely changes the game plan. If you injure that kicker on the other team, no one's going to remember at the Super Bowl parade that, hey, so-and-so would have won if they would have had their kicker. Hey, sorry, a guy just happened to run into him. 100% I'm telling somebody who I don't need, you're going to run full speed in that guy on his first extra point. And then we take him out
Sean
of the game.
Payton.
And so, hey, I don't know if you noticed, there's no trophy case. All right, I'm looking for something. That's what I'm saying. Again, I'm not head coach in the NFL, so I'm not headhunting. But I'm telling you, in the middle of a game, you lose your kicker, it's bad. Going into the game, knowing where the situation is, it's obviously Gerald Everett. He's too important to this offense.
Yeah, I'm agree with both you guys, Joe Everett. Dave's a psycho, by the way. He'd be Zaza Pachulia. He's Zaza Pachulia taking out Kawhi Leonard. He's the Karate Kid taking out Daniel LaRusso.
Sweeping the leg.
Sweeping the leg. He's an absolute psychopath, man. The Cleveland Browns.
Like to win.
Yeah, you like to win any cost. The Browns injury report, the guy that jumps out to me is Jadeveon Clowney. He did not practice today as well. I think it makes a huge impact, obviously. If he doesn't play, you can focus on Myles Garrett. It's exactly what the Chargers have going on with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. Besides Myles Garrett, is there anybody in that Cleveland Browns defense that scares you, Mauro? Because when I think of the Cleveland Browns defense, I can't really think of anybody that stands out besides Myles Garrett.
Not even a little bit, because I look back and I think, wow, Joe Flacco, way past his prime, and his prime was very average, just dominated you on the Jets. I look at that game over and over again, and then I look at Cardell Patterson and the Falcons running all over you, and I think I have a lot of confidence in this game and in multiple different plays and situations for the Chargers. I'm not scared of anyone other than Myles Garrett, and when I say I'm scared of him, I'm saying if I see him in public, I would poop myself. That dude's so massive. But that's legitimately the only guy I'm scared of. When it first listed that he's questionable, I got excited because Browns are 4-10 without Myles Garrett in the lineup, including 5 straight losses. But it looks like he's going to play, and he's the only guy I'm really afraid of. What about you, Dave?
I'm not. If you look at the Browns defense, they only have 2 interceptions as a team. Okay. And look at some of the quarterbacks they faced. Honest to God, you can make the argument they faced the worst quarterbacks. They faced someone they knew in Baker Mayfield in week 1. They faced Joe Flacco. They faced Trubisky, and they faced Mariota. I mean, none of those guys are franchise quarterbacks. None of those are guys that should basically have their jobs in 2 years with their franchise. And so the fact that they're, you see their record at 2-2 and where they're at, they haven't played anybody. I mean, really, they have had the weakest part of their schedule, just like we said about the Chargers having the weakest part of their schedule. This is the best quarterback they faced the entire year in Justin Herbert in week 5. So for the Browns, basically, they only have 2 interceptions. That's not a very good sign on what's happening in Cleveland.
Yeah, those defensive numbers are deceiving when you're talking about yards allowed per game. They've gone against bad quarterbacks, if you mentioned. I think this is the game where Justin Herbert just tears them apart, man. As Mario mentioned, Joe Flacco had a field day. Justin Herbert should have a field day as well. I'm curious to see how often the Chargers throw the ball in this game, because if I'm calling the plays, which I'm definitely not, I'm throwing the ball 35 times a game because they don't have people on that backside of that defense that can put up with the guys that we have. You saw the Jets game where guys are just running all over the place. I think the Chargers do the same exact thing. I really limit Austin Eckler to the amount of how many carries he gets depending on how much push we can get on the offensive line, because this is one of those games I think Justin Herbert can sit back and throw the ball, take the ball away from Nick Chubb, and steal the time of possession game back in our favor.
I mean, that's the key right there, right? It's going to be stopping Nick Chubb. I mean, again, his yards per carry are insane. If they can't stop Nick Chubb early, then we're going to see a lot of Nick Chubb, and that'd be unfortunate. That's not a good sign. That's when you're looking, as you guys said, the low scoring game, everything else. I'm with you, Josh. Just as Justin Herbert's basically time where it looks like that rib injury showed that he looked pretty healthy last week, that he should only be better this week. And if you're a Charger wide receiver with or without Keenan Allen, you're going into Cleveland thinking I'm about to have a big day.
Are you guys a little bit worried about this schedule that the Browns are about to come up on? Like they're about to hit the hardest, I think, point in their schedule. They go Chargers, Pats, Ravens, Bengals, Dolphins, so Bills, Bucks. So it feels like this is kind of one of those games where it's like a must win for them, especially because it's at home, like we said. And, the Midwest, we got the California softies a little bit. So do you guys kind of see this as kind of like a kind of must win a little bit for the Browns after this bad loss they had?
If I'm Josh, I'm gonna go first. If I'm a Cleveland fan, I'm looking at the schedule and I'm going, the only lock that we have as far as a win coming up is the Patriots, and that's because they're playing a third string quarterback. I think you're nuts to think the Chargers are coming to town and you're going to roll right over the Chargers. I know if we do the show on Sunday and Chargers are on the wrong side of the scoreboard, we're going to be disappointed to go, how good are we? Deshaun Watson didn't even play in this game. How did that possibly happen? But if I'm following the Browns, and I know the Browns are used to disappointing seasons, the Patriots game is the only one that it sounds like they should have an advantage of. I mean, they'll be favored in that game. I don't know if they're favored in any of the other games that you just listed.
This is what was supposed to happen to Cleveland Browns. You lost your quarterback. You're supposed to suffer, and this is where the suffering starts right here.
You're right.
You guys lost to the Falcons. You guys lost to the Jets. You're not supposed to beat the Chargers. It's just not going to happen. My prediction, we're going to get in predictions right now. I say the Chargers win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. My prediction for this one is 31-14 Chargers. Try to limit Nick Chubb as best as you can. Put all these guys in the box. Make sure that Jacoby Brissett can be the one that beats you. I go 31-14 Chargers.
31-14. Okay, so that would put you at 45 points, correct? So you would have the Chargers, who are favored by 3, covering the spread, but would have the under. It's 47.5 is the over under in this one.
That's what I have.
Okay.
Yep.
Mario, what do you say? It's funny, as Josh just threw the score out there for anyone who's listening to us for the first time. Josh nailed the exact score last week. Both teams.
Very true. Yeah,
nailed it both
It's
sides.
never going to happen again, but yeah, appreciate it.
He's humble. I like that. I would have called my shot. I'm like, I'm going to get the next 3.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mario. What do you think?
So I'm going to go 28-17 Chargers. 28-17. I think Nick Chubb does have a field day over us. He's going to go over 88.5 rushing yards. That is his prop. I would hammer that. He's going to go over that. And I'd also go over Justin Herbert's over 276.5 passing yards, because he's going to bomb that too out of this world. So I think those are 2 things that are going on. I think Chubb's going to have a day on us. I don't think there's anything we can do. He's going to go off. He's going to score a touchdown. He's going to have over 100 yards. But I think Herbert's going to kill them all day. And the Chargers win 28-17.
What are the props on Herbert's passing yards? Say that again.
Over under 276.5 passing yards. I'm taking the over.
I like the over. I do too.
Oh, yeah.
I like that one. All right. Chargers are favored by 3. The Vegas isn't used to losing money. I'm going to say it's going to be exactly 3. I say Chargers win this game 27-24. But I have the Chargers winning this game. Again, one of these days where I would be disappointed. We come on the post game and going, how did this happen if things don't go our way? This Browns team, as Josh pointed out a second ago, when the NFL punished Deshaun Watson, it was supposed to hurt. It wasn't supposed to be, hey, you know, things are going to go on like nothing happened. I mean, it's kind of a miracle, and I think that a lot of people feel this way, that Deshaun Watson's even playing at all this year. The fact that the Chargers get a chance to go after the Browns before Deshaun Watson gets there, this is a game you have to take advantage of, and I think the Chargers win this game. But I think it's close, because it seems like every Chargers-Browns game is extremely close.
Yep. Let's keep the predictions going around the AFC West. As we record this show, the Broncos are leading the Colts 3-0 with 2 minutes left in the first quarter. I say the Broncos win this game. My prediction for the Broncos-Colts is 24-21. It's going to be a close game, but the Broncos hold on. What do you got, Mario?
Well, I just want to say thank you guys so much for agreeing to record at this time, so we don't have to watch that game. I'm gonna go 17-6 Broncos. I think the
Wow.
Colts are pitiful, and they're going to continue to be pitiful until about week 7 when Frank Reich realizes he has a different playbook and is going to do a weird playoff run, and they will make the playoffs. But there'll be a little hope. So as of now, they're going to suck. 17-6 Broncos.
All right, I'm going to go a little bit different. Broncos are favored in this game by 3.5 coming into the game. Basically, 3.5 was the point spread with over/under at 43.5. That 43.5 seems a little high to me when you look at what these two teams have been doing. I'm going to go Broncos 17, and I'm going to go Colts. I'm going to go 10. I'm going to go 10. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, boring game. One of those are people like, why is this game on Thursday night? You know, you're going to regret having this game on Thursday night when I think looking at the schedule ahead of time, you're thinking Jonathan Taylor against Russell Wilson. What a great matchup. The Colts have been one of the more disappointing teams in the league.
As you mentioned earlier in the week, it's one of those rare weeks where we get to watch every team in the AFC West play, and we can watch our Chargers at the same time. The Raiders travel to Kansas City to play on Monday Night Football. This is my game of the week. I'll be tuned into this for sure. I say the Chiefs win in almost blowout fashion. I think the Chiefs, second best team in the NFL right now, better than even the Buffalo Bills. I'll go the Chiefs win 34-14.
Ooh, that is a blowout.
Ooh.
Chiefs are favored by 7 in this game. The over/under is 57 points.
Wow.
I'm going to agree with you, Josh. I think Chiefs blow them out. Derek Carr is 3-13 against the Chiefs. He has thrown an interception in 7 straight games against the Chiefs. Wow. For him, the prop for him to throw an interception is -110. I would parlay that with Chiefs spread. I don't know what odds you get at that because I did not calculate that, but I would take that because I think the final score is going to be 35-20 Chiefs.
35-20 Chiefs is what you're going with?
Yes.
Okay. I tell you what, I'm going in a different direction. I'm going to be the guy that takes the Raiders in this game. Okay.
Wow.
I'm going to go Raiders in this game. I'm going to go surprise. I think the Raiders pulling off a win the other day, you get that bad taste out of your mouth. We all know that Mark Davis had a conversation with Josh McDaniels as far as the Raiders and the way they're playing. I'm going 37-34. Raiders pull off the upset. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm going to go a little bit different than you guys. And I'm curious to know where the Raiders go from here. I'm going to go with the upset. Go something a little bit different.
I like it. All right, we'll go players to watch as we wrap this show up. All right, this is going to be different, man. I'm going to try something different here. We'll go DeAndre Carter as my player to watch. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that this is his game. Like I said earlier, I don't think the Browns' secondary is very good. And then I'm going to go with a little bit of an obvious one on defense. I'll go Derwin James. I say this is his best game so far in the season. He's going to be coming downhill, knocking the hell out of Nick Chubb. It's going to be a great matchup, Derwin James versus Nick Chubb if they meet at the line of scrimmage. So I'm going to go Derwin James and DeAndre Carter.
I'm going to be classic a little bit here with this one. I'm going to go Mike Williams. Sorry, I can't be unique, guys, but I have the stat right in front of me, so I have to. Last time he went against the Browns, 8 receptions, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That was with Keenan Allen in the game. This time around, Keenan Allen probably will not be out there. I want Mike Williams to have a blowout game. I think Herbert's going to throw everywhere. I think Mike Williams is going to be a part of that. That is my guy for the offensive side. For the defensive side, I'm calling out every single linebacker. I don't care which one, all of them. The whole group, the linebacker coach even, throw them in there. Fill a hole, make a play, make a tackle on Nick Chubb. You're not going to, look, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be able to take him down by one, take him down by many. Fly to the ball, flock to the ball, all white around him all the time. That's the crew that needs to step up today. Just limit Chubb a little bit. Don't let him get over like 120 yards. Like, let's just.
It's funny you say that. You guys notice last week how many running backs ran for around 100 yards last week? There were a ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
It was really odd because the entire season nobody had done it. Then it seemed like all of a sudden there were 7 guys, and you're going, "Wow, what happened?" This is like old school NFL. Everybody's running for over 100 yards in one of these games. It was very unique. It's funny, both of you guys kind of took a little bit which direction I was going. I think Derwin James completely takes the tight end out of the game, and the Browns use the tight end. He's the tight end killer. But I'm telling him, kind of go Mario's direction more. I'm going Drew Tranquil. This is my guy. He's going to lead the team in tackles. He's going to, and if the Chargers are going to win this game, he's going to have a ton of tackles. You know, I'd love to see Van Noy step up and be the player he used to be, because right now he's been a little bit of a disappointment. When the Chargers got him, I was really excited. And right now he looks like there's a reason why he's not on the Patriots. But I'm going Drew Tranquil on defense and offense. I would have gone Mike Williams. I would have gone that same direction. God dang it! I want to say Joshua Palmer. I'm gonna go Eckler. I'm gonna go Eckler's my guy. Eckler's gonna be the guy that continues to have back-to-back weeks where the Chargers figure out a way to get him in the end zone.
Do you know who Austin Eckler looks like before we go?
Who?
Go ahead. Who?
See if you can guess. This guy sucks. Banned off social media.
He's banned off social media?
Yeah.
Oh, Josh.
Oh, you're going to talk about Andrew Tate?
Yeah, it looks like Andrew Tate a little bit. Can you see it?
He kinda does. I can see it. I can see that. That's a good
call. I was working on something for this show. My buddy pointed that out. I couldn't unsee it. I was like, I gotta mention that once.
Oh my gosh. All right. So again, we all have the Chargers winning this game, right? I don't want to say cakewalk, except for Josh had a complete blowout in this game. Interesting. Josh had a blowout. Mario called everyone from California soft. Way to connect with the audience, and then we're gonna join you guys after the game and see who was right and who was wrong on this thing. But we're hoping the Chargers break out. None of this 2-2 stuff. Let's get back to the winning side of football and have a winning record when this thing's over on Sunday. So right after the game, we'll be right back with you on the Bolt City podcast, knocking out the post game show, and pretty excited. I can't wait. Every time we do one of these Thursday show, guys, I'm so excited for that. I wish the game was starting right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what happens. And I don't think Daryl Ruiter told us on the air, but he told us off there. The Browns are going to have special uniforms that you're going to want to pay attention to for this game.
Oh yeah.
Okay, might make you sick, but you're going to have to pay attention and go. First thing you're going to say is, "What the hell am I watching? And what are they wearing?" Okay, that's all. Just leave it at that. Hey, I want to thank everybody again for listening to the Bolt City podcast, courtesy of Odyssey. For Josh Palet, Mario Heron, I'm Dave Palet. Please interact with us on social media. As Josh told you, I'm a psychopath, but I'll communicate with you as well. We'll talk to you Sunday, everybody. Take care.
I love you, California.